Have you ever noticed how quickly a conversation can change when money comes up, especially when it's your money? You might think you're being generous, responsible, or even just honest, but telling your kids how much you've saved, that might be one of the most dangerous mistakes you can make after 60. And no one talks about it until it's too late. Let me ask you something. Do your kids know exactly what you've tucked away in savings, retirement accounts, that little rainy day stash you've been quietly building for decades? If the answer is yes, it's time we have a real conversation. Because what starts as innocent sharing can slowly spiral into control, expectation, and in some heartbreaking cases, regret. Now, I'm not saying your children don't love you. Of course they do. But love doesn't always protect us from influence. And when money enters the picture, especially during retirement years, the dynamic between parent and child can shift in ways you never expected. In this video, we're going to talk about something that's rarely said out loud but desperately needs to be. Why it might be smarter, not selfish, for seniors to keep their finances private. We'll explore what can happen when too much is shared, how it impacts your freedom, your peace of mind, and even your long-term safety. So pull up a chair, grab your tea, and stay with me. Let's start with something that happens far more often than people realize. Expectations. When your children know exactly what you've saved, they may begin, consciously or not, to form ideas about how that money should be used. Maybe they assume you'll help with down payment or pitch in for a grandchild's college tuition. Maybe they think you've got enough extra to cover their unexpected expenses. And the tricky part? They might not even ask outright. It can come through in subtle ways. Hints, jokes, a casual, well, you've got it, right? And suddenly, you're feeling obligated to say yes, even when your heart says no. I've heard stories from seniors who agreed to help just this once, and then found themselves being the go-to solution every time their adult child hit a financial snag. A car breaks down, a credit card gets maxed, and because you've already set the precedent, it becomes harder to say no the next time. What started as openness becomes pressure, and that pressure can eat away at your savings faster than you think. Now, here's where it gets even more personal. Your sense of control. When your kids know your exact financial picture, some may begin to offer what they believe is guidance. That guidance might sound like, you should move into a smaller place so you don't waste money on space you don't need. Or, why don't you get rid of that car? You barely drive anymore. And of course, maybe you should let us manage your finances. We'll make sure everything's safe. And maybe they mean well. But here's the truth. When people know what you have, they sometimes start making decisions for you before you're ready to give up making them yourself. I knew a woman named Edith. She was 74, healthy, and independent. She made the mistake of showing her son her bank statements during a conversation about estate planning. Within 6 months, he was calling her weekly to ask why she was wasting money on name-brand groceries. He wasn't trying to be cruel, but once he saw the numbers, he couldn't unsee them. Suddenly, everything she spent was under a microscope. She didn't feel free anymore. She felt watched, judged. You worked hard for your money. You made sacrifices, paid off debts, raised a family, and now, finally, it's your time to enjoy the fruits of your labor. So why should anyone else have a say in how you use it? Keeping your financial details private doesn't mean you're hiding something. It means you're protecting your independence. And speaking of independence, let's talk about something that can sneak up on you: manipulation. Now, I'm not talking about dramatic Hollywood-style betrayal. I'm talking about subtle, everyday manipulation that can happen in even the closest families. Let's say your adult child is going through a rough patch. Maybe they lost a job or got divorced. They moved back in temporarily or asked for help with their mortgage. You agree. You want to help. You're their parent, after all. But once they know how much you have, it becomes easier for them to justify asking for more and harder for you to say no without guilt. You start hearing things like, "It's not like you can use all that money," or "You can't take it with you." It sounds innocent, but make no mistake, those words chip away at your boundaries. Before you know it, you're not spending your savings on things that bring you joy. You're spending it to keep others afloat. And sometimes the very people you're trying to help begin to rely on you so much that your generosity becomes their plan instead of a backup. And here's the hardest part. Once those lines are crossed, it's incredibly difficult to go back. The expectation is there. The precedent is set. And if you suddenly pull back, you might be seen as selfish, even by your own family. But here's what I want you to remember. Your money is more than just numbers in an account. It represents your time, your sacrifices, your choices. And no one, not even those you love most, has the right to guilt you out of it. You are allowed to say, I've planned for my own future. That comes first. Because it should. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, but what if I want to help my kids? What if I enjoy sharing what I have? Of course you can help if you choose to, but there's a big difference between offering help on your terms and being expected to provide it. That's why privacy matters. It gives you space to decide without pressure. It lets you be generous because you want to be, not because you feel like you have to be. And if you ever do decide to share your financial information with your children, do it with boundaries, clear limits, a plan, maybe through a trusted financial advisor or during a structured estate planning conversation, not over dinner or a casual phone call. Because once that door is open, it's very hard to close again. Now that we've talked about how sharing your savings can create expectations, strain your independence, and even lead to subtle manipulation, let's keep going. There's another piece to this puzzle that most people never see coming. Something that can put not just your finances, but your entire well-being at risk. We've already talked about how sharing your savings can open the door to expectations and even unintentional manipulation. But there's something else I want to dig into, something a little more serious. And honestly, it's not easy to talk about, but it needs to be said when your children or anyone really know exactly what you've saved. You may unintentionally put yourself in a vulnerable position, not just emotionally, but legally and financially. Because once people are aware of your financial standing, there's always a risk that someone might try to control it, or worse, take it. Let me tell you a story that's all too familiar. A man named Harold, 82, widowed, sharp as ever, trusted his son deeply. One day, over lunch, Harold shared details about his retirement accounts, pensions, and even the deed to his home. His son listened, nodded, and said all the right things. "Don't worry, Dad. I'll make sure everything's safe." Within a year, Harold's accounts were joint with his son, not because Harold couldn't manage them, but because his son convinced him it would make things easier. Then came the streamlining. Bills redirected, access handed over. Little by little, Harold noticed that decisions were being made without him. His weekly grocery money started shrinking. He had to ask for his own funds. He didn't want to believe his son would take advantage. But it happened, and it happens more often than you might think. This is where financial abuse becomes a real threat, not from strangers, but sometimes from the very people we raised. And it doesn't always come from a place of greed. Sometimes it comes from stress, from control, from a belief that mom or dad can't handle this anymore. But here's the thing. Losing control over your own money is a fast track to losing control over your life. When you no longer decide how your money is used, you slowly lose the power to decide where you live, what you eat, what care you receive, even who visits you. Now, don't get me wrong. There are situations where it makes sense to bring a trusted family member into the loop, especially if health is declining or you set up a power of attorney with safeguards in place. But doing that through a proper legal process is very different from handing over your financial story in bits and pieces over casual conversation. And it's not just about outright abuse or manipulation. Sometimes your financial openness can unintentionally limit your own future. Let's say you need long-term care someday, maybe home health assistance or even assisted living, depending on how your finances are structured and who knows about them. You might find that doors start closing before you're ready. For example, if your children believe you've got plenty, they may not support you exploring Medicaid or other assistance programs. They might assume you don't need it. Or worse, they might steer you toward care options based on the priorities, not yours. You might be thinking, well, I raised them right. They'd never do that. And maybe that's true, but people change under stress. under pressure, under the weight of their own bills, their own families, their own expectations. And sometimes, just knowing what you have creates tension, especially if there's more than one child. Ever notice how quiet things get when the topic of inheritance comes up? Or how some adult children suddenly become more involved or more distant once they know how much or how little is in your accounts? That kind of energy, it sticks. It starts shaping the way they treat you, whether they mean to or not. Now, I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to empower you. Because here's the truth. Your financial privacy is part of your independence. And independence isn't just about driving or living on your own. It's about the ability to make choices without pressure, without interference, without anyone making you feel guilty for spending your own money the way you want to. That's why protecting your financial boundaries matters more than ever as you age. And yes, I said boundaries, because this isn't about secrecy. It's about setting clear, healthy lines between sharing what's necessary and oversharing what can eventually be used against you. So what can you do? First, get clear on what you want, not just financially, but in terms of lifestyle. Do you want to stay in your home as long as possible? Travel a little? Leave something behind for your grandchildren? Or maybe you just want peace of mind, knowing that your money will support your health and comfort for the rest of your life. Whatever it is, write it down. Get it in front of you. Because when you're clear, it's much easier to say no with confidence when someone tries to pull you off track. Second, consider keeping your financial details limited to those who absolutely need to know, and only in the right context. That might mean working with a financial advisor or an elder law attorney to create a will, trust, or power of attorney with protections built in, not just handing over account numbers and balances during a Sunday dinner. Third, learn the phrase, "I've got it handled." If a family member starts prying, asking questions that feel a little too personal, or pushing for more involvement than you're comfortable with, you don't have to explain. You don't have to justify. A simple, calm, "Thanks for your concern, but I got it handled," is often enough. And lastly, protect your peace. Because financial stress doesn't always come from having too little. Sometimes it comes from having enough, but feeling like you have to defend it, or share it, or justify it. You deserve better than that. You spent a lifetime earning, saving, and building. This chapter of your life should be about enjoying the freedom you worked so hard to create, not negotiating away one uncomfortable conversation at a time. So take a breath. And remember, you don't owe anyone an explanation for protecting your financial future. You owe it to yourself to live the way you choose. Let's keep going. Because if you think privacy is just about money, think again. There's another reason seniors should be cautious when talking to their kids about savings. And it has everything to do with freedom, dignity, and the ability to age on your own terms. You see, this conversation isn't really about money. Not at the core. It's about freedom, dignity, having the space to make decisions for yourself without interference. And yet, when seniors reveal too much about their savings, they often risk losing the very thing they spent a lifetime earning: autonomy. Let's talk about that word, autonomy. It's a quiet kind of power. The ability to decide when you want to travel, how you want to live, who you let into your space, and how you spend your time. It's saying yes when something feels right and no when it doesn't, and not needing anyone's approval to do so. But when your children know every detail of your financial life, something subtle starts to shift. You may not even notice it at first. Maybe you casually mention that you're thinking about taking a cruise with your friends or buying a new recliner. And instead of support, you're met with a pause, a raised eyebrow, or the dreaded, "Is that really the best use of your money right now?" They're not being cruel. But the moment someone else feels invested in your finances, they start to act like they get a vote. And when you feel like you have to explain or defend your spending, you're no longer free. You're asking permission. That's not the way retirement is supposed to feel. And here's the thing, autonomy matters more, not less, as we get older. When you were younger, independence was about building a life. Now it's about maintaining it, holding on to the little routines, preferences, and pleasures that make life worth living. Whether going out to breakfast every Sunday or keeping the thermostat just the way you like it, those small choices add up to a big truth. This is your life, and it should reflect your values, not someone else's spreadsheet. I once met a woman named Louise. She was 79, lived alone, loved her garden, and had always handled her finances just fine. But one day, during a family dinner, her son, out of genuine concern, asked if she considered selling her home. He'd seen her statements, knew what she had saved, and thought it would be more efficient for her to downsize and use that money to simplify things. Louise wasn't in debt. She wasn't struggling. But from that moment on, she felt watched. Every time she bought a new plant for her garden, she wondered if her kids would think it was wasteful. That kind of second-guessing starts small, but it eats away at your confidence. And that's what makes this issue so difficult. These aren't strangers trying to control you. These are your kids, the people you love more than anything. That love is real, but love doesn't mean surrendering your independence. Now, let's take this one step deeper. When your children know you've saved a comfortable amount, or even just enough, some of them might subconsciously start to plan their own future around it. Maybe they assume you'll help raise the grandkids and think, Mom can cut back. She's not working anymore. Or maybe quietly, they're counting on a future inheritance. Suddenly, your money is no longer just yours. It becomes part of someone else's unspoken plan. And if you ever decide to use more of it for yourself, travel, healthcare, home upgrades, or just because you might feel guilt, pressure, or hear that quiet disappointment in their voice when they say, "Oh, I didn't realize you were going to spend that much on that." It sounds small, but that tone sticks. It creates doubt. This is why some seniors stop spending altogether. They start hoarding their money, not out of necessity, but out of fear. Fear of judgment, fear of conflict, fear of being seen as irresponsible by their own children. But here's the truth I want you to hold on to. You are not selfish for spending the money you earned. You are not careless for prioritizing your well-being, your joy, or your comfort. You spent a lifetime putting others first, raising children, sacrificing for your family, helping when no one else could. And now is your time. Not to feel guilty, but to feel free. That freedom includes a right to keep your finances private, to protect your ability to choose what's best for you, and to spend your days, however many there are, on your terms. Now, I want to say something else, because for some of you watching, the pressure might not be subtle. It might be obvious. You may already feel like you've lost control, like your kids are managing things, but not really asking you what you want. Maybe they've taken over your banking, moved you into a smaller place without really involving you. Maybe you've been told it's for your own good, but in your heart, you feel sidelined, silenced. If that's you, I want you to hear this loud and clear. It's never too late to reclaim your voice. You have every right to ask questions, to slow things down, to say, I'd like to revisit this decision. You're not being difficult. You're being wise. And if you're still in control of your finances now, this is the perfect time to put protections in place. Work with a trusted advisor, someone neutral, someone experienced. Create legal boundaries that outline who can access your money, under what conditions, and with what oversight. Because true peace of mind doesn't come from hoping people do the right thing. It comes from putting clear protections in place before things get complicated. You don't have to share every detail of your savings. You don't have to let someone else help. If it doesn't feel right, you have every right to say, thanks, but I've got it covered. That's not being cold. That's being confident. So the next time someone asks how much you've saved or what you're planning to do with your money, remember, you don't owe anyone that answer. What you do owe yourself is a life that feels calm, free, and joyful. Let's keep going, because there's still one final piece we haven't talked about. Something that can not only protect your peace and privacy, but also strengthen your relationships in the process. Let's talk about what happens when you don't tell your kids everything about your savings. Not because you're hiding something, but because you're protecting something. Your peace, your relationships, your legacy. Now I know what you might be thinking. Won't that create distance? Won't it look like I don't trust them? Not at all. In fact, setting financial boundaries can strengthen your relationship with your children if it's done with love, confidence, and clarity. Here's why. When you maintain those boundaries, you're not just holding back numbers from a bank account. You're preserving the role you've earned over a lifetime. You're saying, I'm still the parent here. I still have a say in my life. And that subtle shift in energy can help maintain mutual respect well into your later years. Think about how many seniors end up feeling like they become the child. Like every decision, where they live, what they eat, how they spend their time, starts to feel like it has to be run past someone else. It's not always done with bad intentions. But once your kids believe they're the financial decision makers, it often changes how they speak to you, how they guide you, and even how they see you. So instead of sharing numbers, share values. Instead of saying, I have this much saved, try saying, I've planned ahead, I feel secure with the path I've chosen. That reassures your children without handing them the keys to your kingdom. It creates trust without giving away control. And if they press for more, gently redirect. Say something like, I appreciate your concern, but right now, I'm not looking for financial advice. I'm just enjoying this stage of life. That response keeps you in the driver's seat. It's respectful, but firm. Now let's shift gears a little. Because one of the most powerful things you can do, more powerful than any dollar amount, is teach your family how to think about money, not just what you have. Lead by example. Let them see that financial freedom doesn't mean spending recklessly or hoarding out of fear. It means making thoughtful choices, knowing what you value, and living with dignity, no matter your balance sheet. You want to leave something behind? That's beautiful. But don't let the desire to leave a legacy rob you of your joy today. Because here's the truth. Your greatest legacy won't be in your will. It'll be in the memories you created, the lessons you taught, the strength you showed. You don't need to explain every dollar you spend. You've already paid your dues. And you certainly don't owe anyone an apology for living fully. You've earned that vacation, that new pair of shoes, that hobby that brings you joy. And you shouldn't have to run it past a panel of adult children for approval. Now, this doesn't mean you never prepare or plan. Quite the opposite. If you want to be truly empowered in your later years, get your affairs in order, but do it quietly, thoughtfully, with the right people involved, not the most convenient ones. Find a financial advisor who works for you, not one who is recommended by your kids or shared with your son-in-law. Choose someone neutral, professional, and experienced in elder planning. That way, you know your needs, not someone else's expectations, are front and center. And if you haven't already, work with an elder law attorney. Get your power of attorney, will, and health directives in place. That's how you maintain control, even if one day you're no longer able to speak for yourself. It's not morbid, it's smart, it's protective, it's loving, because it's not just about protecting your money, it's about protecting your voice. The reality is, money has a strange way of complicating even the strongest relationships. It can turn well-meaning kids into accidental gatekeepers. It can stir up comparisons between siblings. It can awaken fears, entitlements, or old resentments. But when you set boundaries now, when you say, here's what I'm comfortable sharing, and here's what I'm keeping private, you teach your children one of the most powerful lessons they'll ever learn, that it's possible to love someone deeply without needing to control their life. And let me say this, if your kids are grown, responsible, and respectful, they'll understand. They might not love it, but they'll respect it. Because deep down, what they really want isn't just access to your money. It's peace of mind that you're okay, that you're cared for, that you've thought ahead. So show them that, not through spreadsheets, but through steady decisions, confidence, clarity, and calm. Because at the end of the day, your savings aren't just numbers. They represent your life story. Every hour you worked, every sacrifice you made, every wise choice, every dream you held on to. That story doesn't need to be edited, judged, or rewritten by someone else. You get to tell it, live it, and finish it on your terms. So if you take nothing else from this conversation, let it be this. You are not selfish for protecting your financial privacy. You are not wrong for setting boundaries with your children. You are not unkind for choosing independence over explanation. You are wise. You are strong. You are worthy of a life that feels secure, respected, and truly your own. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What's one thing in today's video that resonated with you? Have you ever felt pressure to share more than you were comfortable with? Or have you found a way to set healthy boundaries and stick to them? Leave a comment below. I read every one. And your story might help someone else feel a little braver today. If you found this video helpful, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss future videos designed to help you live stronger, wiser, and freer after 60. And remember, this chapter of your life is about you. Not just surviving, but thriving. Not just giving, but living. Here's to dignity. Here's to peace. Here's to living your best life on your terms. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next video.